Hello, I'm Nate, and yes, it's been a little bit longer than usual for me posting a video. I got very busy and then I had to get back into the swing of things. I've recorded a few videos, but they weren't good. I just have to get used to talking to myself alone in a room again, and trying to ignore the noise of my neighbors. So, yes, the setup has changed. It does that a lot, huh? I feel like this one will last at least a few months. And then today we're going to be talking about J.K. Rowling. So if you don't know what happened, J.K. Rowling on Twitter has for years liked tweets from people who are transphobic, TERFs, and generally just like people who don't like trans people. And recently she was adding her own tweets to that, which she can no longer claim that she didn't know that those tweets were about trans people and that she did it by mistake just to support women or whatever the argument was. Things that this are not are an attack on J.K. Rowling or a sort of call-out video. That's not what I'm doing. Everybody knows what happened, and you have your own opinions on it. You have a brain and you have fingers. You'll do what you want and type what you want. So what I want to talk about today is the experience of being a trans person. Of course, that's what all my fucking videos are about. On top of being a fan of someone who turns out to not think that you have a right to exist. Like, I don't follow Twitter accounts, I don't follow Instagram accounts, I don't follow YouTube channels. I have to go through and make sure that people don't hate trans people before I contribute anything to them. Which, you know, sometimes gets me pretty far behind on content. There's so much McElroy brother content that I didn't consume until I knew that they were pro-trans rights, which is my bad, but you know, you can't be too careful because things like this happen, Joanne. So, I had read Harry Potter growing up, as many people from my age group did, and when the 7th book came out, I can remember the 7th book came out while I was visiting my grandmother in South Dakota, and I went to a Walmart, because it's the only store nearby, that next morning after the book dropped. So I went and bought one, and I ruined that vacation for everybody except myself because I was just like reading. I didn't want to do anything else. There was a factory tour that they went on, which already was not going to be fun, but I just was so upset the whole time that they wouldn't let me take my book in, and like a character had just died. I think it was Fred, and I was so upset. Like, I just ruined everybody's time. These books did mean a lot to me. They may not have had characters that represent people that I could relate to on a physical level. Like, I'm not British, I'm not an orphan, I'm not a wizard. No, I'm not a straight person. But I could relate pretty heavily to Harry in the way that society reacted to him and the way that people could just tell by looking at him that he was different. Like, in his case, it's because he was famous. And, you know, in trans people's cases, it's because I'm 5'4". But really, Harry Potter just touched so many people because he is relatable. Ron came from a pretty large family. He was the youngest, but I was the oldest of a lot of siblings with not a lot of money. And a big thing I hear a lot of the time is that a lot of friends that I have that are female really relate to Hermione, which struck me a little bit weird that, you know, everyone relates to the not like other girls girl, but that's a whole other issue in itself, and I don't blame them for reacting to society in the way that they have, at least not as kids. I mean, and this is a weird issue because this is the first time. There have been times before where someone will say a bunch of anti-LGBT stuff, especially anti-trans stuff, and nobody cares until the person does something that's like anti-Semitic or racist. But this time, you know, there's racism right there in the books, especially with Cho Chang and now with Nagini, which she said she planned from the beginning, so either she lied or it's in the books. And I don't like the way that she treated Dean, but I don't remember if he is specifically black in the books. I mean, the goblin bankers are like greedy, hooked nose, they run all the banks. Like, that's pretty anti-Semitic. And did we go into depth for Cho Chang because wow. A lot of people have gone way more in depth into Cho Chang's character and why it's messed up better than I ever could, including that her name is not Chinese, even though she is Chinese, and the way her character is vilified. Really, a lot of the girls in the book that aren't Hermione, I would say almost all of them, besides Mrs. Weasley and Hermione, are vilified for being, like other girls. Which is, you don't notice these things when you're reading through it because you're getting it all from Harry's perspectives. Also, the way the inclusion of certain things is handled is never handled well. Let's talk about the 2 LGBT instances because it's not good. So we have Dumbledore, who post-series, she said in an interview, was gay, which rocked the fandom there for a minute. And now she is the main writer on the series that has Dumbledore and Grindelwald, who is supposedly his boyfriend, in it, not being gay. Specifically not doing that. And I think this is the worst of both worlds sort of situation, where you're going to make everybody who's pro-LGBT mad because you're trying to get these brownie points for something that you didn't do, and you're going to make all the people who are anti-LGBT mad because you included somebody. But you didn't really, so you're just making both sides mad. It's also weird because this backlash from both sides happened, and then the movies came out with Dumbledore and Grindelwald in them. So what you could do was make them gay, or at least address anything in the movie, but they just didn't. They were just like, this is our BFF necklace. We're best friends. Was it a necklace? I didn't watch the second one. I just sort of read the reviews and the plot summary. Regardless, the other one is the alleged metaphor between werewolfism, lycanthropy, and HIV and AIDS, which is, yikes. I guess it could have been done well, but it wasn't, especially since Fenrir Greyback was targeting young men to infect. So that's a big yikes. The only good werewolf we meet is Remus Lupin, and he's outcast by society and shamed, which could be part of the metaphor depending on how you look at it, but I don't like it, and I don't think a lot of people do. Also, in the new movies, Nagini, I know she was in the books, but she was a snake the whole time, and why is it, cool that she's just a snake now? Is that supposed to be cool? Is it supposed to be sad? Because I didn't get any of that. And why Nagini? That's not really a Korean name. Where did that name come from? Also, while we're at it, that one Jewish kid she tweeted about, and I don't remember the name of, which should tell you a lot about the importance of that one Jewish kid, which is when someone asks you about Jewish people attending a school for a whole country, and you have one name. Not that you need, a list when you're writing stuff like that, but the answer to that question to me wouldn't be yeah, Jewish kids were at that school, here's one. If someone asks you if Jewish kids went to Hogwarts, your answer should be yes or no. Well, it shouldn't be no. I mean, you have, yes, here's some Jewish families, or no, everybody who went to Hogwarts was an atheist because of magic, but then why did they celebrate Christmas? You could just say it was just for the fun of it and for the tradition, but to make up a kid's name, that's just odd to me. She didn't have that ready to go. He wasn't part of any of the stories. So, and why one Jewish kid? It's this one kid came from a family of Jewish muggles and didn't have any kids of his own to send to the school. Just one kid. That's odd. I'm still going through the list of problems with the series, but I've been thinking about this way too much because it's a series that I really, really loved for many years. I even had a Slytherin jacket and a Slytherin wall hanging that was cloth. It wasn't poster. It was one of those roll out cloth things, which I realize is not anywhere near the level of fandom that some people have. I know it's not special, but it's also more than most of society. So I had all the books, but luckily I got them all secondhand except for that 7th one, so there wasn't any more money going towards Joanne. But real quick, I do want to talk about her deep misunderstanding of how the United States works, both present day and historically. So the idea that there would be one school for all of the United States and that everyone would go to that school and be fine with that by itself is already weird. 2, no American would be able to say no match with a straight face. I'm not going to tell you what that sounds like because you know, but that's also not like naming conventions here. We just, I hope they got paid well. Although I don't think a lot of them, like News Commander Eddie Redmayne, is an American actor, so I'm sure that he could say it without giggling. Maybe. But everybody else, they're good job. Not laughing every time someone said the word no mash. Also, where are the Native Americans? Like, the more that you look at the history of magic within relation to the Harry Potter world, which is why I don't think that the books should have been expanded upon, the less sense everything makes. Because then you have to look at historical events and why people didn't step in and why is everyone just okay with that. You have to look at genocides of people and think, why didn't the wizards and witches within that society stop that from happening? Like we were just saying, the Native American people, if they had witches and wizards within their group, why didn't they do anything? And 2, if they didn't, why not? When other people have it just fine. And then you look at, like, even Muggle on Muggle stuff. I'm sure, who was it? Jenny Nicholson has talked about this in her videos, but, like, you have to, like, relook. They mentioned World War II and the Holocaust in this, like, latest Fantastic Beasts movie. And it brings up some concerning questions. All of that aside, and the only reason that I'm talking about this so in depth and sort of just complaining about things is that I really like this series, and I was like the person to take how much do you know about Hogwarts tests. My sister and I would literally talk about Harry Potter and watch Harry Potter all the time together. My friends and I in college, we had a Harry Potter watch party where we watched all 8 movies in a row. I think we only made it to 6. I just don't get how someone can write a book with the main focuses being on human compassion and love and like revolutionary understanding and fighting for what's right, and then turn around and not think that trans people are people. It's also a matter of like, who made you a doctor or a gender studies professional? Like, nobody. So I don't understand why you even have an opinion on this. I don't think people should have opinions on things nearly as much as they do. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying, like, it's okay to say I don't know enough about this topic to have an opinion on it, or like just leave people alone who are not hurting anybody. I'm not canceling anything, and I'm not telling you not to enjoy Harry Potter. I just think that we should really review where a lot of the stuff in the books is coming from now, like looking at it more critically. Not so far as we enjoy it, but insofar as where our own opinions and thoughts might lie on things. Just think about it more critically. There are people dying, Joanne. There are trans people dying. That's just every unknown transphobe that I come across online, or any like hypothetical transphobe from now on, I'm just going to refer to as Joanne. What is it with the Anns? Joanne, Roseanne, they're all TERFs and racist. Well, yeah, that's another thing. Roseanne Barr. So, I grew up on Roseanne. I actually own the entire original 9 series because Roseanne, I actually have the egg shirt too. The chicken shirt, I own that. But the time it was coming out, it was actually a very progressive show. Like the first lesbian kiss on daytime TV. There was a gay wedding in there. I think it was the first one. A whole, very special episode about how black people are just like white people and there's no difference. Like, for the time it was coming out was the late 80s or early 90s, and it was about middle class, like lower middle class America, working collar, but, good people. And then Basically, I will never forgive Roseanne Barr for what she did to Roseanne Connor in the reboot, and I will not forgive her for years and years and years and years of transphobia, which nobody cared about, of course, and then that horrible racism. Maybe they feel like it's personal attacks, but at a certain point in celebrity, don't you kind of get used to people saying mean things about you online? Like, I get if you're new into the game, like all these new Star Wars people that everyone are bullying on Twitter. If you're, like, not super used to that can be really distressing. But if you've been around since the 80s and 90s, which is, God, at least 20 years ago for both of them, 30 for Roseanne, then, like, how are you not used to people being mean to you in the tabloids, in the press, and online? Like, it's overwhelmingly positive, the feedback they got, and then they're just horrible after that. What happened? Like, I can't think of anything Steve Irwin did that people would be mad at him, or Mr. Rogers, or even Lavardis Burton reading Rainbow. Some people are mad at Bill Nye for not actually being a scientist, but I don't know if that was proven false or not. But the point is, like, there's nothing there that's, like, racist or transphobic that I know about. And so why does this keep happening? Normally, I would chalk it up to sexism, but recently people have been digging into, like, Mr. Rogers and Bill Nye and Steve Irwin. Like, all of these great, kind, Bob Ross. Like, they've been digging in and they can't find anything. They can find nothing. So why is it that we have this horrible problem with women who are like the leaders of being kind and nice? I don't understand. Is this like a tactic that... So I know that, like, white supremacist groups try to target disenfranchised white youths that are, like, feel like they're being stripped of their power that they've had because they grow up hearing these stories about, like, knights and kings and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they don't have as much, like, power as they want in their life, and they go on a mass shooting spree or whatever. And then maybe it's just, like, kind women have been taking advantage of so much that, like, TERFs, who have a lot of similarities to white supremacist groups and agree with a lot of their ideology, might just be focusing, instead of on, like, the younger demographic, they're focusing on, like, older, kind women, especially in the UK. Like, kind of makes sense. I'll have to look into that now. Like, I might be, you know, when you're writing an essay and you're like, I was just making stuff up, but I might be onto something. Like, I think I just came up with something worth looking into. Actually, I think next time we're going to go over that and I'll see if there's any, like, evidence to that. This has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but I didn't want to go buy a Harry Potter book. Goodbye for now, or as magic users in 1920s New York would say, no see. Not to fear. She's still here. But people have really been trying to cancel, like, Bill Nye and Steve Rogers. But at a certain point, no match. What I heard a lot of my no match. I'm still not over this. It's almost worth it to be able to think that people said the word no match in movies that came out in theaters across the world, like, with a straight face.